How's it going, everybody? Hope you had a fantastic Monday, and it's a good start to a great week. Monday Morning Quarterback episode 61 here, and had a lot of you guys reach out and ask about how things were going at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for myself and the cars running CSI shocks. And so I thought we would talk about that a little bit tonight. As you can see, I'm still in my team gear. Kind of final practice today. Carb day is more of just a rehearsal for race day after the cars are built. But talk about that in just a second. Hi Rick, thanks for tuning in. So yeah, today 2-hour practice session for both cars, and those cars are getting they get taken all the way back down to the bare tub. Everything gets crack checked. Gearbox gets rebuilt, uprights get rebuilt, everything kind of gets freshened and gone through, and then I have the shocks back here and going through those from top to bottom. So complete disassembly, new seals, bushings, shock oil, shims, etc. Similar to how we would rebuild any of y'all shocks that would get sent in here to get worked on. So busy week for us. We have Wednesday the Holman Classic, and Thursday the Hoosier 100. Wednesday things also start at Peru for the Non-Wing World Challenge, so Trevor will have our shock trailer up there. I'm going to go up there Friday. I'll get to the Little 500 for practice at some point this week, and then we have Carb Day, which is kind of our final practice at Indy. And then I usually take Saturday off because we have to be in the track around 5 a.m. on race day to kind of avoid traffic and get everything ready. And so yeah, then Sunday's the Indy 500. So busy week. Last week was great for our customers. Trevor and Sam were in Charlotte for the national race, and I think that was our best national race. 7 classes were won. Colin Mitchell won 3, kind of led the charge for Team CSI, which was awesome. And then Gunnar Pio won Senior Honda. Case James with his first national win in Junior Honda. Jacob Denny won Unrestricted Animal, and Chase Picola won Heavy Honda. So really cool. Stanley, Storm, Nervo, and Bull Rider all won on our shocks. So we can help you no matter what kind of car you have. So Scott, thank you. So I'll go into a little bit about how our week went at Indy, and then if you have questions on that or any of your tech questions, just fire away, and I'll get them answered. So I'm excited because this is hopefully the last week with this setup. I got a bunch of new equipment that just came in for better lighting and audio quality, and we're going to set up kind of a permanent little studio in my office to hopefully have a little better quality. It's not very dark in my office, it just comes across really dark on this video. So looking forward to having a little better setup for you guys as we continue to try to bring you some more video content moving forward. So this was my 12th Indy 500, or is my 12th Indy 500. Done it with numerous teams. This is my 7th year with Dreyer Reinbold. And I kind of have the opportunity with them because they're a one-off effort. So any other team would have a full-time shock guy. So a full-time team will have a guy that's all they do for the team is shocks, and they don't need to bring anybody in for the month of May. Dreyer used to be a full-time IndyCar team, and they compete in the American Global Rallycross Series now. And so they don't do Indy full-time, they just do the 500, and they needed a shot guy when they went back to doing Indy. And several of buddies of mine who work there on the rally side I used to work with when I was full-time in IndyCar, and so I've been helping them for 7 years, and it's been a great experience for a one-off team. They're very well prepared. They don't cut any corners. We really work kind of all year for this one race. And we've been in contention to win it a couple times the last few years, so racing well inside the top 5 late in the race, and just haven't been able to close the deal. So Dave sharply wants speed secrets. Dave, actually, I think JR might have outqualified your car, but I think we're starting kind of next to each other with JR and then Sage's in the back. So Dave, our buddy from Sharp Advantage, he's the chief mechanic on Ryan Hunter Ray's car, so he's got some cars out of his shop that are well up into the field, so pretty cool. One neat thing is, before I finish this, is as you walk up and down pit lane, there's a good portion of the IndyCar mechanics that are die-hard short track, sprint car, and midget fans. Just IndyCars was like a good way for them to make a nice living for their family. And that was certainly the case for me when I was there. So it is really neat. A lot of the guys in the morning asking who won what race last night, and hey, did you see so-and-so win? And a lot of the talk in the garage is about short track racing. So, so to back up, when I was asked to do Indy again this year with Dreyer Reinbold, it was the same two drivers as last year, Sage Karam and J.R. Hildebrandt, and so I agreed. It was a little trickier for me this year. One, CSI continues to grow, so my need here is growing. And then as well, my wife and I had a baby just over a week ago. So I was pretty upfront with them and said, hey, look, I can get everything built ahead of time, but we're not quite sure when this baby's going to come, and if it comes during practice, obviously that's going to take priority for me. And as a full-time guy, that probably wouldn't be accepted, but they were willing to work with me, and so luckily the baby came the week before practice, and all that worked out, and she is sleeping really good, and that really wasn't much of a problem last week, as we do put in some really long days. So practice got off to a bit of a shaky start for us on the 24 side. So built shocks for both cars. They're Penske shocks that we build to the kind of our race engineer spec, what he wants, and then throughout the week he might ask me my thoughts on different adjustments with the shocks and a direction we maybe should go and how much and stuff. But they're Penske shocks that we work on and tune. The fitment for an IndyCar shock is rather unique, and with the small amount of cars in the series, it's really not worth us developing a shock just for that. Penske and Öhlins are the two primary products that people use, and then there's a couple teams that manufacture their own shock in-house. So no rules in IndyCar as far as shocks, so it's a little bit different than NASCAR. So we got things started, and J.R. Hildebrandt, the other car, he's had great speed all month, been right around 10th place or so on the speed chart all month, has been very comfortable. We've just been refining things, and as the week progressed and you start to get into qualifying trim on Thursday, he had speed straight away, no issues. And then on Fast Friday, they give you extra boost, which is about 50 horsepower, and that's to get the speeds up for qualifying, make it exciting for the fans, get close to that 230 mile an hour mark. And JR immediately was fast, no issues. Sage Karam, the other car, and the car that I'm primarily on, I'm on that timing stand during the race, and on race day I'm just with that car. And those are the core group of guys that I've been with for 7 years, because we ran Sage 6 of the 7 years I've been there, and we were a one-car team the first 5. The last 2 we've ran multiple. So Sage has been extremely fast in the years past, and we just struggled to find a balance that he was comfortable with, and especially in qualifying trim. And so it just continued to become a struggle on Fast Friday. As the boost was up, we couldn't get him comfortable, we couldn't get up to speed, so we actually put JR in the car, and he shook it down and was like, hey, it feels very similar to my car, I would be comfortable trimming it out farther, I think you're fine. And then Sage jumped right back in it at the end of the day and posted the 6th fastest time of the day and said, yep, okay, I feel good. And so we had a little more confidence going into Saturday. And Saturday they locked in the fastest 30, and there was 36 So 6 cars weren't going to be locked in, and they were going to have to run on Sunday for the final 3 spots. And of course, we didn't want to be in that predicament. And they do the qualifying draw, and typically, there's a slight advantage to going out early. Well, this year it was a large advantage to go out early, because not only did it get extremely hot throughout the day, but the wind got worse and worse and worse. And the wind was more of a challenge than the heat for most people. It was very gusty. And it wasn't like a headwind going down the front stretch. It was like a wind blowing from turn 1 to turn 3. So it was kind of pushing you into turn 2. Just very uncomfortable. Guys that are studs and have been around there a million times were commenting how difficult it was. So Sage went out first and actually brushed the wall. Didn't really do any damage, but obviously that was unsettling to him. Wasn't sure if the car was damaged or not, and so basically aborted the run. JR was one of the later cars to go out, and the conditions were just miserable. And he didn't go quite as well as we would have expected. His first lap was actually like 2:29.2, which was really fast, and then the car just fell off throughout the run, and the wind had a lot to do with it. So JR was like maybe 25th or 26th at that point when qualifying was done. So he was safe. However, anybody could make attempts, and it was unlimited attempts until the end of the day. And so as teams continued to make attempts, it got to where JR was getting lower and lower, and we continued to make attempts with Sage, and we just couldn't find the speed. We would be well fast enough lap 1 and 2, and the fall off was just too great. And so JR actually withdrew his time and got in the fast lane to try to do another qualifying attempt, because he thought he was going to get bumped. And right before he went, he did get bumped, actually by Alonso, who later got bumped himself. And but when JR requalified later in the day, when it had cooled off some, the wind was still a factor, but it had cooled off some. He actually jumped up to 21st later, really good lap. So he was secure, and we just couldn't get Sage in the field. And so it was pretty unsettling Saturday night amongst the team. And Sage, we made 7 qualifying attempts on Saturday, which is like unheard of, and just couldn't pull it off. We missed it by about 1/10 of a mile an hour of getting in that top 30, and just we weren't sure what Sunday was going to bring. We knew the forecast was for rain, cooler temperatures, but still windy, and looked like rain most of the day. And so throughout that day, it rained. We did get a brief morning practice in, so the 6 cars that weren't locked in, that were vying for 3 spots, got a brief practice, and we were second quick in that practice, and his run looked really good, and he was confident, so that kind of got us feeling pretty good again. And so finally late, we were supposed to qualify about noon, and I don't think we qualified till like 4:30. They got the track dry, there was a little window there, and we were the 4th car of the 6 to go. And so we knew at that point, if we could go to the top of the board, we'd be locked in, because there were only 2 people behind us, and we couldn't get bumped out. And Hinchcliffe was first car out, and he went to the top. And then I think Max Chilton went, and he didn't have very much speed. We were pretty confident we could beat that time. Hinch's time was pretty strong, 2:27.4, I think, and you needed a 2:27.2 to get locked in the day before. And then Alonso went a 2:27.3, and then we went 4th, and we were able to average 2:27.7 to go top of the board, so we knew we were locked in, which was a huge relief. You don't really realize how much that race means to you until it's like on the verge of being pulled away. And it's, I'm not involved in the financial part of it, but I do know what it pays to start that race. That's public knowledge, and all the sponsor dollars and everything. And I have to think conservatively, it's like a $500,000 swing going from making that race to not making it. So made it really cool too. The last car to go out was Kyle Kaiser for Juncos, and he bumped Alonso. I hated to see Alonso get bumped, because I had a couple buddies on that team, but the Juncos guys are really good guys. They come over to my house and race slot cars in the wintertime, and I have a lot of friends that work there, and those guys, man, they crashed a car middle of the week, and we got into the garage the next morning and they hadn't been home and they'd worked all night on it. And I think at one point they said they were there for like 49 hours straight at the track without going home and working on stuff. So it was really cool to see them make it, and I know that financially can really help that team. So that was qualifying at Indy, man. Drama filled. We're in the race. Practice today was good. Both cars felt pretty solid. I was very encouraged. Sage actually got out of the car about a half hour before practice was over because he felt the car was like on the money and not much we could gain by continuing to run. So that was good. Eric Long asked Penske shocks. What was his question exactly? So do you just do the valving, all Penske parts? So no, it's actually a Penske body, and then the piston and some other internals are made at Dry Reinbold. So full machine shop up there at Dry Reinbold. They actually make some of our parts for our CSI shocks, which is really neat. And certainly a lot of prototype stuff. They've got like 4 CNC machining centers up there. And they're not really set up for production, but when we're developing something or low run stuff, they make some parts for us, so yeah. Vance, so the track wasn't repaved at Indy. They did put a sealer on it, and it really doesn't seem to have done much, honestly. The sealer, yeah, it doesn't seem to have done a whole lot to the track. So Indy's crazy smooth. So our typical shock travels are about 200 thousandths on the front, which is like under 1/4 of an inch, and 400 thousandths on the rear, so like just over 3/8 of an inch. So the shock's only traveling just a little bit and really low velocities. Like our average velocity is like under 2 inches per second. So really smooth track, and with the amount of downforce and the heavy springs we run, there's just not a lot of travel. So, all right, that's my story. I'm ready for questions. What do you guys have? Again, we're looking forward to kind of sprucing up our studio and having a little nicer video quality and stuff for you guys. Got a new camera and new mic, new lighting. We got a backdrop coming, and we're gonna have a cool little area. So, where are you guys racing this week? We know there's a lot of stuff going on here in the Indy area, and looking forward to seeing a lot of our customers from out of town coming in for the 10,000 to win non-wing world championship micro race. So that ought to be a real good one. Vance, how many G's do the cars pull in the corner? That's actually not a piece of data I look at. I think it's like 2 or 3. Mark, what's a set of Indy tires run? Again, I'm not on the financial side of it, but I do know you don't buy the tires. The tires are a lease. So we go to Firestone, we get the tires mounted on our wheels, and then we take them back and they unmount them. So you can't keep the tire even if you want it. And I believe it's 32 sets. So you pay a fee at the beginning of the month, and you're allotted 32 sets to use however you choose for practice, qualifying, and race. So you've got to save usually at about 10 sets for the race, because there could be up to 10 pit stops depending on yellows and stuff. So making those 7 qualifying attempts was like really hard on our tire allotment. So today we pretty much did all of our practice on qualifying scuffs because we wanted to make sure we had enough sticker tires for the race. Steve, how many laps will a set of tires last? So a typical fuel run at Indy's 30 to 32 laps, and we don't have any issues with like excess tire wear at that. They definitely fall off. They start to fall off like on the 2nd or 3rd lap and continue to fall off. However, the way the aero package is, like the field slows down so much. You're actually a lot faster catching the pack, and then it gets real bottled up. So even though tire wear becomes an issue, it's not like going to wear to the point that you're going to wear through the tire. You just lose grip. And so the challenge, especially I think this Sunday, is going to be staying flat, because it's supposed to be really hot. on Sunday, and the hotter it gets, the more grip you lose. So staying flat's going to be a big thing. I think if I was engineering the car, definitely be leaning towards more downforce. So. Randy, how does tire air pressure affect shocks? So the easy answer is it really doesn't affect shocks at all. Tire air pressure does affect your spring rate, and so depending on the style of tire, is going to determine what air pressure you need to run in it. But it doesn't really affect the shocks. However, I've mentioned before that the shocks are designed to do a specific task, and they can't overcome deficiencies in the setup. So on a dirt car, if you're on a heavy hooked up rough track and you probably should have 10 pounds of air in the right rear tire and you have 6, and the car's bouncing all over the place, it's not the shock's fault. It's too low an air pressure, and the shock wasn't designed to overcome that deficiency. So air pressure is very, very important. Dave, thanks, no problem. Glad I could share. Jason, what size is the roll bar? So we, I don't want to give away any trade secrets, but so the roll bar, the cars are equipped with a front and rear roll bar. Some teams do or do not run the rear roll bar on ovals, but it's actually not like a bar, like a torsion bar you'd think. It's a blade. And so there's different thicknesses of blades and different materials, everything from like stainless to titanium. And then as you, so like if you think like my phone, so if this is the blade, the blade rotates as you adjust it. And so obviously when it's like in this position, it would be more flexible. And then as it rotated this way, it would be harder to flex. So it's a blade that is used for the anti-roll bar. Kevin, how many IndyCar teams have the CSI Gold subscription? Well, darn, they all should. I was actually sharing with one of the new engineer on JR's car, Pit Logic, and he thought it was really, really cool. Most IndyCar teams create their own setup template in Excel, and there's a ton of stuff they need to track, but they wouldn't have to carry those big old laptops to pit lane to the timing stand. They could just go up there with their phone and have it all right there. So maybe something we need to look at. Mark Ashcraft, on Pit Logic, when I copy to new on setup, sometimes when I enter values on the new sheet, it changes the ones I copied from. Also, it does not copy the session you are on, but the first session of the group. That would be a good question for Kevin. My first question, and I'm not the best tech support, is are you using the most current version in iOS or Android? Air Clong blade, so they're running leaf springs. No, just a small thin little blade for anti-roll, since it's independent suspension. That's the only thing that ties the two together. So cool. Mark, Kevin will get with you on that and make sure that you're dialed in. So we're getting a lot of people on Pit Logic, and that's awesome. That's what we designed it for. We want everybody to enjoy it, whether you use CSI shocks or not. If you got buddies who maybe don't use our shocks, they could certainly benefit from Pit Logic because it's a great setup tool for everybody. But if you ever run into a question, just shoot me a DM, message competition suspension on here, Instagram, email, whatever your preferred method of communication is, and we'll make sure that we get your question answered. And every now and again somebody brings up something that we haven't encountered, and Kevin's been awesome about getting fixes straight away, so you can keep using the app and enjoying the experience with it. So cool. Well, if there's no more questions, I'm going to sign off, run home and get a little bit of sleep, get back here real early and get these shocks finished up. And then I'll be here at CSI tomorrow, and then Wednesday Little 500 practice and the Holman Classic. Hopefully the weather kind of looks crummy all week, but hopefully we'll get some racing in. We hope you guys have a fantastic week, and hopefully you get some racing in as well, and we look forward to talking to you next time. Take care.